So gamers, unfortunately I have some bad news for you. I told you Recycle was going to be the best sell, hands down, and unfortunately we have to put our hands back up for a moment because the last minute changes have made it quite a bit worse than it should be. The good news here is that I have already been told that this is going to change at least somewhat from what it is right now, but let's go over the things that do and don't affect the stacks of Recycle here. So, basically everything affects Recycle now. We have Hammer Aether Slams here. Yeah, that's gonna affect Recycle. Basically useless on Hammer. And then even our Lantern holds are now going to be making Recycle pretty much useless unless you are only hitting one part with that Lantern, in which case it can build the stacks for you. But, you know, with the Pangar Lantern, that's not happening. And rather problematic for Strikers is that the Karma Breaker, duration over time, is going to completely make Recycle useless as well. And, you know, you need your Karma Breaker to be dealing peak DPS with Strikers, as well as needing your Tempest form. And then, you know, that's what makes your claps actually do damage. But, unfortunately, if you want to play Recycle with Strikers, you just can't do that right now. So basically the only viable strategies here with Recycle then are going to be Warpike, because it doesn't have any random special stuff that is going to be affecting it. And then of course Repeaters, it's obviously the best weapon to focus parts with. However, both of those are going to be needing to run the Strike Lantern in order to make this cell actually useful, because your Strike Lantern isn't going to be resetting your damage. Now what is unfortunate here as well is part of the fix for that one super broken thing that I was talking about is that these now have a 30-second duration, even though you are still continuously hitting the same part here. So it's automatically going to be reset in 30 seconds time, which I really don't think that needs to be a case either, because, you know, you're gonna just continue hitting that same part most likely. Oh, well, that's not good, is it? So apparently you have to then hit a different part for you to get stacks back. That doesn't seem like it's intentional. So the odds of you actually hitting the same part for more than 30 seconds at a time, pretty low, really, especially if you're using Revenant. You know, you're going to clear that out every 15 seconds or so. But still, the concept of this, the fact that, but even though you're continuing to do what the cell wanted you to do in the first place, you just don't get stacks until you hit something else for some reason. So that much actually makes it even worse than I thought it was going to be. So something else that should be resetting it, I'm going to test it right now, and it's probably going to reset it because everything else of that damage type has been resetting it so far, is going to be the Sword. Most likely going to reset this as well, unfortunately. And this is actually even worse for Sword because you can see I can't even build stacks while I'm in overdrive. So it's completely useless on Sword, completely useless on Strikers, completely useless on Hammer. Now, again, I've already been told this is going to be fixed. It's going to be fixed to some degree. It does have to be careful that it doesn't completely alienate Sword, Hammer, and Strikers in the process. But seeing as how the Lantern is allowing you to build stacks in the first place, it seems like it was just a blanket, if you deal damage to this part, then you get a stack sort of thing. So editor me here, I just want to slide this in here, but this is not how it was behaving on the test server at all. It's basically a completely different cell from what it was on the test server. And why I'm just kind of disappointed in this is just because I was basically praising this cell. I was, before I even found the bug in the first place, I was about to praise the hell out of the cell. Like, this is probably the best coded cell I had ever seen until the change was made. And then, yeah, it's very, very unfortunate. But yeah, so basically the only two weapons that are going to have a chance in the meta until there's some sort of change that happens is going to be Repeaters and Pike with the Strike Lantern. But that does have to be if Recycle is worth it enough to be running the Strike Lantern over some other Lantern. Which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but Pike is already typically pretty good on Malkarian. But typically Pike does spin to win here, so it's not usually accurate enough to really run Recycle. And part of the strategy is even just intentionally hitting both the wing and the face at the same time. That way you get all your part breaks in a chain at the end. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get it at all. You should still get it, but I would just recommend first then going for your reuse cells, because reuse, again, is pretty darn good. Now, some people were asking why would you run reuse instead of like Molten now? And Molten is 10% attack speed, and the reason that we had Molten as the best option there is because it would almost always be up. But Reuse at +3 here, it's going to have a 30% chance to give everybody a 20% attack speed buff. And even if it doesn't, it's going to give you a 10% attack speed buff, meaning on average it's going to be more attack speed than Molten can provide. And I did put like a little note in the video on Wednesday, but you can get both of these buffs at the same time for 30% attack speed. And the fact that you can get both of these buffs at the same time does kind of make a bit of an argument for the reduced cell. In a group, we had somebody running it earlier today. It wasn't that bad. But it was like they were not running the reuse cell. They were running Catalyst Tonic for Blitz attack speed. They were also running Sword for the Overdrive attack speed bonus. And then every now and then we were also running Wounding as well as the Shrike Lantern. So we ended up just having a bunch of attack speed. And I think he also ended up running Tempest at one point for the passive attack speed bonus from Tempest. But as far as using Tempest for that attack speed bonus, that's not going to outpace just having Revenant on and doing damage and using some other damaging cell. But yeah, if you want my advice on what cells to purchase first, I would recommend getting your 8 reuse cells first, then your 8 recycle cells, then your 8 reduce cells. But again, this is going to be until something is done about recycle. You know, having not all special damage sources resetting it, having not all damage sources period reset it is very important for the cell being good. Because again, I've already been told by Aurelia that she is going to change recycle to make it so at the very least, lanterns aren't going to be resetting it. And then I also voiced my concerns of how basically it's Pike and repeaters that only have a chance if all special type damage resets these stacks. Which is something I didn't go over, but it definitely happens based on, you know, the Lantern doing it. The unique effects are also going to be resetting your damage bonus from a cycle. So it's just unfortunately basically not worth running at all right now. And I don't think it's really going to affect the trial leaderboard this week because it is Malkarian. And for Malkarian, I would guess that this extra damage bonus that you'd be getting from Recycle wouldn't be outweighed by the fact you kind of need the Frost Elemental proc to have a better time with this trial. But there is going to be a use case for Recycle in this trial, and that's going to be for the Mount Cheese builds. Maybe I'll do a video on that within the next day or so here. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys an update here. Recycle is still technically the best cell in the game in very specific circumstances here. However, with how specific these circumstances are right now, it's really not going to be worth running, at least for the time being. I was actually running it on the Chainblade levels in the Gauntlet though. I had the Shrike Lantern and I was also running 3 reuse as well. But for Chainblades it worked fine on most behemoths. I would say like the particular pain point behemoths would be like Savit or again mainly like Charogs and Cool Shots are like the worst to use it against, just because of those overlapping hitboxes on those parts on the face. So yeah, quick update video on that for you. That is going to be it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like for me, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I've been Trevor. I go by TheMrTrails, and I will catch you guys next time.